Hi, I'm Shelby Williams with Plano City Council, also chairman of the Collin County Republican Party. At the final City Council meeting in January, that's the last one we will have before we finalize the bond items that will be on the ballot in the May 3rd election. Now, over just a hair over $700 million worth of bond items were brought before council for discussion, and we did discuss those. We had a robust debate and we whittled that down a little bit. But before I get to that, we also had our DART board members, Paul Wageman and Nathan Barbera, with council to answer questions. Also in attendance were Gary Slagle, DART board chair from Richardson, and Nadine Lee, CEO of DART. They did not address council. They did not really speak, but I'll share with you what the questions and the answers were that we asked Mr. Wageman and Mr. Barbera, because I want to leave you hanging a little bit about the bonds. I know you're eager to hear about the bonds, so I want to torment you just a little bit. So with DART, and to tee this up, in case you have not heard before, this is a big deal, which is I've been trying to shine a spotlight on for years, as have others. DART is primarily funded by DART, Dallas Area Rapid Transit, is primarily funded by half of the city sales tax from its member cities. So you're charged 8.25 cent sales tax, 6.25 cents of that comes from the state of Texas, 2 cents comes from the city of Plano, and half of that, one whole penny, goes straight to the DART system. That means that on average, you as a resident of Plano pay as much into DART as you do in property taxes. Yeah, I know, right? So DART was created by state statute in 1983 and required a citizen referendum to become part of the DART system, which we did in 1986 when half of our sales tax was Collin Creek Mall, effectively. The city of Plano has changed, but we are still paying in half of our sales tax, I should say your sales tax, it is your tax dollars, to the tune of $114 million last year. So we have been advocating for reform of this, DART reform and modernization, to make it make sense. We have a coalition of other DART member cities who are likewise frustrated with the model and the lack of service. And we finally got DART commissioned a study by Ernst & Young to answer the question that I've been asking for years, which is how much does DART actually spend in and for the benefit of the city of Plano? They've never tracked it. The Ernst & Young study showed that 65 million some odd dollars of the 114 million, that is a subsidy to other cities in DART. So 65 million of the 114 million goes out of Plano and benefits other DART member cities. That is not to say that the remaining 35 some odd million that is spent in Plano is actually spent well. That's not to say there's value for that $39 million, because we all see the empty buses driving around. But we asked our board representatives a few questions. First, there have been discussions recently about modifying DART services, and I asked, have there been any discussions of service changes that are of any significant benefit to Plano? Because fiddling around the edges isn't necessarily going to help us. And we were told that there are no significant discussions about service changes, or at least no discussions about service changes that would be of significant benefit to Plano and the people of Plano. Second, is there any sense, DART has started engaging us more, which is good, but is there any sense of willingness to continue engaging us after the end of this legislative session? And that they were not optimistic about, because I played this game before. We've gone to the legislature the past 2 sessions just looking for fiscal transparency, what we finally got in that Ernst & Young report. And DART appeared to be willing to work with us during the legislative session, and as soon as the legislative session was over, poof, they were no longer willing to work with us, which we've seen the pattern, hence the question. So they were not optimistic. I asked about the Silver Line benefit. So much is made about the upcoming Silver Line to DFW Airport and whether there would be a significant benefit to Plano once that comes online, or would it be an incremental benefit? And we were told it would not be a significant benefit. Shelby talks, take two. There would not be a significant benefit, nor was there anticipated to be significant ridership, which, if it's like the other aspects of the DART system, why would we expect better ridership? The Ernst & Young numbers really speak for themselves. It's by one of the leading consulting firms in the world, one of the most respected consulting firms. And DART has said they don't accept the study. They reject the methodology. So there are a number of problems, but as the Dallas Morning News shows, that this is increasingly likely to go to the state legislature. In the end, the state legislature created DART. It's a structure of state statute. And we, the city of Plano and other cities now for several years, increasingly, have tried to work with DART for a local solution. We've worked with DART, with the Regional Transportation Council, other member cities, the North Central Texas Council of Governments, and we have gotten almost precisely nowhere. Since DART will not budge, it seems increasingly likely that the state legislature is going to have to get involved because, of course, it was the legislature who created DART. So that's enough about DART for now, but we are in the midst of the legislative session, the 89th legislative session. So going back to the bonds, $700 million was proposed, just a hair over, and here's the thing. Out of all of the items proposed for the bonds, almost all of them are needed. Actually, they're all needed. The question is, how urgently are they needed? And can we find another funding source? So I'm going to go down the list of some of the things that we determined to scratch out of the $700 million. We ultimately landed on $647,911,000. However, there was discussion at the meeting to maybe whittle down the size of the road repair package, because we know the roads need repair, but it's getting to be a bit much. Our people could probably use a break from the constant construction and the orange cones. Now, again, all of the work needs to be done, but how quickly does it need to be done? And maybe we should look at paring the amount of that back a little bit at the next meeting before we actually determine what is going on the bond package. But I'll give you a rundown of the items. So the highest item first is actually a new police headquarters. It was built in the 70s. It's been piecemealed over time. It is needed. It is just needed, and it is time. But that is a $155 million investment. Police headquarters do not come cheap, especially for cities of excellence who have the amongst the highest rating in the nation every year for public safety. So I fully support this. I said so at the meeting. All of us do. It's just high time. It's needed. The next highest item is for arterial concrete street reconstruction and overlay. $130 million even. This means that not every bit of that expenditure is very well defined, since there's a nice round number there. I think this is where arterial is like Parker Road, Spring Creek, the major roads. I think this is where we have some opportunity to reduce this, just so that we're not throwing so much road construction at people. It's been a lot in the past 4 years, and just to give you an idea, the total amount of road repair approved in the last bond was a little over half of that's proposed in this bond, which means more road construction than you've been getting. I think our people need a break. Now we are looking at 92 million, 93 million, call it residential street and alley repair. So separate from the arterial streets and the overlays, the residential streets and alleys. So going through a few more of these, parkway services and fleet, that's 54 million. We've got, we need a new fire station. That's going to be Fire Station 14 for $21.7 million. We've got a Fire Station 8 remodel for $11 million. We've got, I should mention that the police headquarters includes a new 911 dispatch area. Water main rehab, pavement and sidewalk repair, $26 million. Traffic improvements totaling, I'm eyeballing this here, about $25 million. And that's for the signalization all over the city. We've got the police training center, total rebuild on a new piece of property for $51 million. Some of the things we reduced, there are several more things here, but some of the notable things we reduced to bring it to the $647 million mark. I should say 648 if I'm rounding. We took Hall Park, which was pitched at a even $10 million, which also tells you it's undefined. We're going to move that to a future bond referendum. That was $10 million. Again, like I said, there was a category of miscellaneous under traffic improvements for the signalization and everything, traffic detection, vehicle detection system, etc. Miscellaneous for $810,000. We all felt that we weren't comfortable proposing a bond item for miscellaneous. So that came off. We had slotted $20 million for land acquisition, which I get the benefit because land ain't going to get any cheaper, but we chopped that in half. And so instead of $20 million for land acquisition, such as for like park space and Levon Farms, we've reduced that to $10 million. The libraries, this was an interesting proposal by Councilman Riccadelli. He proposed that because we have 5 libraries and we have bonds on a 4-year cycle, and the bonds are 20-year bonds, why don't we just do a new library renovation every 4 years? So that way, every library of our 5 will get a renovation every 20 years, which is about the lifespan of a renovation. Great idea. We're going to do that. So we've taken renovations for the other libraries off for the moment, and we're going to do the Schimmelpfennig Library remodel for nearly $2 million. It was proposed to spend nearly $4 million for land acquisition for the facilities maintenance facility, and we've scratched that. We're going to move that to a future item. Now, here are a few things. The downtown right-of-way infrastructure project, that was $6 million. We're going to look at using TIF funding for that because that's of immediate value to the TIF, which is the tax increment financing, tax increment reinvestment zone. So that's where people in that area are paying into the reinvestment zone, and that's where the funding, we're going to look at using funding from there rather than putting the cost on all the city with interest, which is what a bond entails, interest. We're going to look at moving sidewalks for $5 million, screening wall reconstruction for $8 million, and alley reconstruction for $6 million to pay for with the capital maintenance fund rather than through bonds, which again, bonds mean you pay interest. And so one of the things I really want to do in the remainder of my time on council is to get us onto a maintenance roadmap where we are not issuing bonds for things that we need to maintain. So a little aside, municipal bonds have a very valid purpose. You may hear some people say, vote against all bonds. That's not a good idea, but you should vote for some bonds and vote down other bonds. Where and whether is entirely dependent on whether the individual bond is a good idea, but the whole purpose of a bond is to capitalize a large expenditure over the lifespan of the asset. So in the case of a police headquarters, it makes perfect sense to capitalize that. Because if you got to lay out $155 million for a new police headquarters, you got 2 options. Well, 3 if you just don't build a new headquarters, but we're not entertaining that option. 1, you either issue a bond, a 20-year bond, and over the course of 20 years, you're paying incrementally. So that way you're paying a little bit every year toward that police station, and you're paying the interest on it as well. The alternative is you jack taxes way up in 1 year to pay for that new $155 million police station, and then the taxes come back down the next year. The biggest problem with that is that, well, not only are you jacking taxes way up all in 1 year, but it's the people who live here now who are going to be paying for all of that police station right now. And if they move, which we hope you don't, but you might if you just got slapped with a $155 million tax bill, then they're paying for all of the police station that they're not getting the benefit from later if they move out of Plano. Conversely, the new people moving in, they're off the hook. They don't have to pay for any of it. But if it's in a bond paid for over 20 years, then that new resident will pay their portion of it. It makes total sense. So we have to be discerning about what is and is not worth paying with bonds. But we're a built-out city, and so we have all this stuff to maintain now. We have to maintain it in perpetuity. We can't let it dilapidate. And so I want to get us on a 30-year maintenance roadmap so that we predictably know what's coming ahead of us for maintenance, and we can spend a reliable amount every year toward whatever most needs to be maintained so that we don't have to issue bonds for that. The biggest reason for that is, like, we haven't even put this bond measure on the ballot for 600 to 700 million, whatever it's going to end up being. We already pay $25 million a year of your tax money just in interest. That's not paying down principal and interest, that's just interest. And we're looking at nearly doubling the last bond package. And that's with new inflationary environment and new interest rates, which means we're going to be paying closer to the order of $50 million a year in interest. And if we got a lot of these expenses, if we prepared for them well into the future, knowing we're going to have to maintain them, then we would not have to issue bonds for these. We're still going to have to collect tax dollars for the work, but we're not going to be having to pay that interest. And that $50 million in interest might come down to closer to $10 million in interest if we're not issuing bonds to maintain anything. And if we're saving $40 million, we could lessen the burden on our people's property taxes. We could put that back into our roads or our infrastructure where it's needed. There's all sorts of things we could do with it that's better than paying interest with it. So the next council meeting is going to be the second Tuesday. Let me math this. Monday. Scratch everything I just said. The council meeting at which we vote on the bonds is going to be Monday, February 10th. Monday, February 10th. That is my final answer. And that's where we're going to have the final vote on the total amount of the bond package, as well as the items that are going to appear on your ballot. There will be multiple. There'll be like parks and recreation. There'll be street improvements. There'll be the police station, public safety improvements, stuff like that. So I encourage everybody to make your voice heard, come to the meeting, but just bear in mind the items that we're trying to get down to a palatable level, but our city needs a lot of work, and we want to make sure, as I've always said, that we want to continually revitalize and create the future version of the Plano that we all love today. So that's a wrap. I'm Shelby Williams of Plano City Council, also Calhoun County Republican Party Chair. Thank you very much for hanging in this long, and I look forward to seeing you soon. God bless.